Hey, it's Jason Robel,
And I'm Whitney Lauritsen.
and we are doing a very special live edition of our podcast, This Might Get Uncomfortable, today, where we're going to be talking about our thoughts, feelings, and perspectives on the coronavirus, its sociological, economic, and human impacts that we see unfolding right now, and also how it's incorporating into one of the biggest trade shows in the world, something that we've been going to for well over a decade. That's the Natural Products Expo West. There's been some really fascinating things that are unfolding over the past few days regarding not only that trade show, but new information that's been coming out about the coronavirus and things that we want to share with you, from statistics we've read to preventative methods and to, again, the sociological, cultural, and economic impacts that this is having and how we feel about all of that. So it's going to get juicy. It's going to get interesting. It's going to get opinionated. And we are going to share some statistics and facts and updates with you. So in the goal of not only empowering us and our friends and our family, but sharing some ideas, perspectives, and resources with you so that you can feel empowered and clear about how best you want to move forward with your life, with all of the information that seems to be pouring out every single day. So I'm certainly, I know I'm going to get fired up. I know I'm going to get passionate, and I'm looking forward to this one, Whit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. If you didn't know this, we have our podcast, This Might Get Uncomfortable. There are almost 40 episodes out now that you can listen to. You can find that just by searching for This Might Get Uncomfortable on your favorite podcasting platform. And this is our very first time going live. This is something that we had thought about doing with the podcast before we're testing out new software. So hopefully everything is working properly. If you have any issues, let us know immediately in the chat if you're watching live, and if you're watching the recording. We appreciate your patience. We don't know if this will be actually put up on our podcast or just stay as a live video recording and perhaps turn into an audio at some point. So this is all new to us. And our podcast is about very different elements of well-being. We're passionate about health and wellness. We're passionate about veganism, sustainability. We talk a lot about lifestyle and challenging the status quo. We have conversations between each other. We have conversations with special guests. So this really falls into the style and topics of our podcast, because we like to talk about current events and we like to talk about controversial things. I think we definitely have very different opinions on this, and we wanted to create this to share what we've been learning, because each of us have been working in the health and wellness worlds for over 10 years. So we're going to bring our personal experiences and our research, our knowledge base. I've been doing so much research on this coronavirus, also known as, I think, like CV-19, is that right?
CVD-19.
And it just feels like there's so much information out there. So we wanted to provide kind of a place to discuss this. So we open this up to you, whether you're watching live or you're watching the recordings. Please feel free to comment, jump in on the conversation. This is not meant to just be us putting our opinions onto you. We want to have a discussion here. And one thing that's actually really helped me is having conversations with friends,
Yes.
colleagues. Well, I guess technically we're the only colleagues that we have, but contemporaries, people that are working in the industry alongside us.
Yes.
And also having conversations online, reading forums. I actually found some really helpful things on LinkedIn today. We are going to talk about this event that we go to called the Natural Products Expo today. And that's really been on our minds and on our hearts the last few days. We're going to dive deeper into that. First, we're going to start with just our general feelings about the coronavirus and our knowledge on that. And we encourage you to get into conversations as well, but be mindful that everybody is coming from a different place, a different background, different experiences. Some people are very afraid. Some people aren't afraid at all. So I always want to remind people to be kind, considerate, and respectful when talking about delicate subjects like this, and especially the respect side of it.
Yes.
I have been hearing accounts of racism happening as a result of this, which is really heartbreaking to me, because acceptance and compassion are core values of mine and Jason's as well. So I think it's really important to begin this conversation to say that it's helpful to know that we're all figuring this out together. You know, this is a global issue. This is affecting people all around the world. Some people are not affected physically at the moment. Some people are. Some people know somebody who's died from this. Some people are terrified. They have a lot of parents. I've been hearing concerns with them. People that have elders, loved ones in their lives. I mean, there is a lot of concern. And as Jason says, the two of us have differing opinions, so it might get a little heated between us, although Jason and I always try to come from a very loving perspective with each other. But we just want to be really honest with you. So with no further ado, let's dive into some of the things that we've learned, some of the feelings that we've had. I feel like, Jason, you are rearing to go.
Yeah,
let's get in.
As the song goes, I'm burning to talk about this. So I want to preface this by saying that, as Whitney so brilliantly said, we do want to come from a place of respect and openness and compassion, and also, be very clear about our individual opinions and things that we share. So I want to, first of all, preface this by saying that neither Whitney nor I are licensed medical professionals.
Thank you.
So any advice or perspective or opinion that we dispense today is not to be taken as medical advice or a prescription for anything.
Thank you,
in regards to your mental or personal health.
Yes.
So with that being said, though, we do have friends in the wellness industry that are licensed medical professionals that have weighed in with their thoughts, their feelings on immunology, endocrinology, all these things. I'm going to get into that in a little bit, but I want to start off with when all this was kind of unfolding over the past couple weeks, there was this one quote from Will Smith. It seems tangential, but there was this phenomenal quote in the movie After Earth. And so the first thing that came to my mind, especially this morning when I woke up, and Whitney and I were texting furiously about what's been unfolding with the Natural Products Expo that we'll get into later in this episode. But the quote from this movie, Will Smith says, "Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present exist and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice." And I think that, for me, it's been interesting to kind of observe people's reactivity to what is going on. And the reality is coronavirus is real. It is happening. People are getting infected. People are passing away. It is happening. So when I say that, when I read that quote, it's not to say or allude to the fact that I don't believe it's a real thing. What I do believe is happening, though, if I may, is there is an incredible amount of, I think, fear-mongering happening in the media and with governments and things that are leading people to be extremely reactionary. And I have some thoughts on this, and if I may lead off for a little bit.
Well, let's just dive into that for a moment.
Sure.
I think that that's one place that we differ a bit, because I think that from my perception, you're very focused on the fear side of it. You're very triggered and affected by the fear reaction.
Yeah.
And I feel that too. I'm a big believer in that we often have the choice to come from a fearful place or a loving and trusting place.
Mm-hmm.
I think both of us being spiritual people, we often subscribe to that mindset. I, however, would bring in the feeling that it's important for us to consider that, yes, it could be fear-mongering, but if we are coming from this place of don't worry about it mentality, it could be very dangerous.
Right.
And that's a fear that I have for the people that are focused on the fear side of it. It's like, I don't want to come from a place of ignorance thinking like, oh, don't worry about it. The government's just trying to scare us, or the media is just trying to scare us. And they're trying to, okay, good. Sorry, we're getting some feedback. Hopefully the feed is okay. And for anybody who's watching live, if you just refresh your screen, then hopefully any of the technical glitches will go away. But please keep us posted if anything continues to go wrong. And like we said, if there's any challenges with this, hopefully we can put up the recording of this later on for you to listen to it.
For sure.
Nice and clear. So to wrap that up, I think it's really interesting, because there's part of me that just wants to relax and be like, well, I'm doing everything I can to take care of myself, and the whole world seems so afraid. If I can just like stay in my health bubble and stay informed, then I'm not going to be affected, right? But the truth is that people are dying from it. The truth is that it is impacting multiple countries. The truth is that, well, I also should say the truth that I'm seeing, right? So again, I don't know anybody who's directly affected, so truth is only what I'm reading.
Correct.
And that's a very important thing, is what are our sources? I think that's my biggest message, is to evaluate lots of different sources in order to determine how you feel about something and how you're reacting to it, right?
Yeah.
Because I've seen so many different reactions to this, but they tend to fall into maybe two categories. One is like, oh my gosh, like don't go out, be very careful. You know, you could be vulnerable and it's going to spread really fast, and it's only a matter of time till it affects half the country or half the world. You know, like all these different people that are saying it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Right.
Right. And then along with that comes a lot of helpful information about boosting your immune system and taking care. Like I think the one of the most common tips that's coming out is to wash your hands. And so
Yep.
I'm thinking, well, you know what? It's actually trained me to wash my hands more often, which I think is really important.
Yeah.
It's getting me to be very mindful about taking care of my health more than ever, right? So being mindful of what foods I'm eating and drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, reducing my stress, doing these things to take care of myself.
Yes.
Just in case I'm put into a position of where my health could potentially be compromised, which anybody is potentially vulnerable to this. We do not know who we could come into contact with. There's still a lot of unknowns about this.
Right.
Right. So I think it's an important thing to have that balance of being mindful. Maybe this is a media storm. You know, I know one thing that you shared a few days ago on your Instagram, Jason, was this list of all the times there's been these health scares
Over the last 20 years. Yeah. Every single year. So, first of all, I want to just piggyback on something you said, Whitney. Two things. Number one, I'm not recommending people don't be concerned or take precautions. I'm just saying be level-headed and reasonable, and don't allow yourself to descend into fear, stress, and anxiety if possible, through mindfulness, through, you know, because here's the thing, like my philosophy is this. There's an amazing Sufi quote, a Sufi saying from the ancient Sufis that says, trust in God and tie up your camel.
I mean, I feel like that could summarize exactly
Trust
how I
in
feel
God
right
and
now.
tie up your camel.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not saying like I'm going to go and shake hands with everybody and, you know, kiss people on the lips at a trade show and just like, I'm going to be mindful, but I'm also not going to carry a vibration of fear and stress that's going to raise my cortisol and lower my immunity, right? It's a mindful thing, because if we're in constant stress and constant anxiety and constant fear, that has a direct immunological effect on our body.
Yep.
So being afraid, stockpiling, getting into doomsday mode, because someone asked about stockpiling. Yeah. I don't think getting into doomsday apocalypse mode right now is going to be a healthy choice for us mentally or physically. But again, tie up your camel. Trust in God, tie up your camel.
Use it as an opportunity to take better care of yourself.
Yes, and the reason I say that is because I literally just had a cross-country flight this past week. This past week, I went from LA to Buffalo, New York, and I was on six airplanes because I had layovers, right? So in the matter of 48 hours, I was on 6 different airplanes. Now, what did I do? I had a really advanced breathing mask. And in terms of my kit that I took, which a lot of people were interested about, was I had colloidal silver, I had oil of oregano, I had elderberry extract, I had a ton of water. I had magnesium. I had all of these things to not only boost my immune system, but protect my immunity on this airplane. I also had hand sanitizer with me. So I'm doing all these things with my breathing mask, my silver, my oregano, my hand sanitizer, and I felt great. Now, was I doing that because I felt afraid? No, I didn't feel afraid about it, but I'm going to, on 6 airplanes in 48 hours, going to take as many precautions as I can to protect myself and keep my immunity high. But I wasn't scared, right? That's the difference, is like you can take precautions in life and take good care of yourself, but it doesn't have to come from a fear or anxiety space.
Right.
You can come and protect yourself and be mindful, but you don't have to do it because you're scared to death of dying.
Right.
So I think the point, I think my spiritual point of this is, if we manage our thoughts and our vibration and our energy around this, we can be precautious and we can be mindful, but not do it in a way where we're so stressed out that we're lowering our immunity, which is deleterious. That's the perspective I'm coming from.
Yeah. And I also I feel grateful for an experience I had last year when I traveled. I am somebody for many years, I will get on airplanes and I will go through this whole regiment, right? I have like a checklist, sometimes literally, sometimes mentally, of things that I bring with me to protect myself as much as possible
while you're
right?
in the air.
Yeah. And also thinking about it ahead of time, like making sure I'm getting enough sleep and water and good nutrition. And then afterwards, making sure I get rest after a trip. And you know what? I got really sick on my last trip. And I actually have been sick at least twice in the past 6 months. And that's very unusual for me.
Right.
And those experiences reminded me that I am not immune to getting sick, because I feel like for many years I thought, well, I'm vegan, and there's all these people that think like because they're vegan,
that's the magic bullet.
They're healthy and thus they don't get sick. And the truth is I have been sick less than before I was vegan, but I've also been vegan for 17 years now, and my body is constantly changing. I'm not the same person, vegan or not, as I was 17 years ago.
Of course,
right?
Of course.
And the same thing can be said. Oh, I eat healthy. I eat unprocessed foods. I don't eat sugar. All these things. We can get into these mentalities of thinking that we are immune, right? Like we are unable to get sick just because we haven't gotten sick in the past. And I think that can be dangerous too. And when I got sick after or during a trip that I took last year, it was very humbling. It was an opportunity for me to really step back and go, you know what? I'm not always as strong as I think I am. And things happen. I have no idea how I got sick, right? It could have been from the airplane. It could have been from somebody else I was in contact with. And that was eye-opening too, is that sometimes we just don't know who we're around or what we're touching. The one thing that's helped me with this virus right now is that I have become hyper aware of how I am with other people, who I'm interacting with, what I'm touching. Am I touching food? Are we shaking hands? Am I washing my hands enough? Am I, getting spit on when someone talks to me? Like all of these different things. Is somebody coughing around me, sneezing? Like, not to be paranoid, but simply to just be more aware, knowing that I could get sick. And I think that that's an important thing too, is sometimes if we kind of have like the privilege of thinking, oh, well, I don't get sick. But sometimes these are opportunities for us to realize how vulnerable we can be. Yeah. And again, coming back to what you're saying, it's not meant to like put you in this fear consciousness all the time, because anything could happen to us at any point, virus outbreak or not. Right. But it is a great opportunity to just step back and say, well, how are you taking care of yourself? And what would you do if you got sick? Do you have the things in your home that are going to take care of you? Do you have a doctor you can call? Do you have a friend that can help take care of you? Like, some of us just simply are not prepared for these vulnerable moments in our lives.
No, that's a good point. The one thing too, Whit, that I want to talk about is not only our strategies, of how we care for ourselves. As I mentioned, some of the travel hacks, right? And you mentioned, the preparedness for any kind of illness. I just also think that it's important that we talk about the misinformation that's going out there, and I want to dive into this. I want to go through the whole thing, if I may, okay? Because I think it's important. There's a doctor called Dr. Benjamin Lynch, and I like his stuff. And yesterday, 2 days ago, he posted something on his Instagram about the New York Times had a post that said how to prepare for the coronavirus. And this was the advice of the New York Times. And then I want to get into Dr. Ben's advice, and it's important.
And then there's in between that I want to share a comment that just came up.
So New York Times 5 days ago said how to prepare for the coronavirus. They said wash your hands, keep a good supply of essential medicines, get a flu shot. Experts offer practical tips on how to get ready for a possible outbreak. Okay, so Ben Lynch's thing was, okay, this is hype to sell vaccines, and here's why. The flu shot will do nothing for you because it affects the wrong strains. So coronavirus and flu shot are not the same strain of virus.
And there's no vaccine for coronavirus.
That's what I mean. And
it might not be for like a year or two.
So the point is, if a reputable media outlet like New York Times is saying go get a flu shot, it's deliberate misinformation.
Well, I don't know if it's deliberate, though. I mean, this is the thing. You and I are not scientists or medical experts. Let's remind people of that.
But he is.
Who is?
Dr. Ben Lynch.
Oh, who posted this.
So I'm talking about this.
But that's also one doctor's perspective. And I think vaccines are a very touchy subject.
But
I also, like,
I know, I just want to
personally, I'm not super comfortable talking about vaccines. If you would like to, I just want to
I do.
remind the listeners and the viewers that just we are different people. And we have different opinions on these things.
So his point is this. His perspective is recommending a flu shot to somehow positively affect coronavirus is like giving someone an antacid for their fever. That's his perspective, okay? And he's like, yeah, the coronavirus is contagious. Yes, it's spreading worldwide. Yes, it's making people sick. And yes, it is the last infection some people experience before they pass on and die. Like, he's acknowledging that it's real, right? Mm-hmm. But he said, we've encountered multiple viral pandemics in the last 20 years, and we've survived it as humanity. So just some statistics from Live Science. This is a science journal. The coronavirus, dubbed COVID-19, has led to more, it's up now. It's more than 85,000 illnesses and 3,000 deaths worldwide, primarily in mainland China. But that's nothing compared to flu statistics. In the U.S. alone,
When was this posted?
A few days ago.
See, that's the other. I also want to pause you there. I feel like we have to be very careful. And I would like you to read this, but the date, the timeliness of information. And that was actually, can we pause for a moment? I want to bring up a comment that came up who said, deaths have only happened to elderly thus far. So unfortunate, but helps to understand the virus. Some also had underlying health problems. Children have not died, nor anyone else below the age of 60. Although I think the person that just passed away in Seattle a few days ago was 50 years old. So again, we have to continuously be informing ourselves.
Yes.
I was hearing very similar things as this comment was sharing, is that a lot, we can't stick to something. When was this posted, Jason, that you're reading?
Yeah, this was 5 days ago.
I mean, 5 days ago with something like this is like a long time ago.
I know, but
right?
So
there's new information coming out like every minute on this virus,
but
and we have to stay updated.
His point is this, okay? Statistically speaking, in the U.S. alone, the flu has already caused an estimated 26 million illnesses this year, 250,000 hospitalizations, and 14,000 deaths already, according to the CDC. So he's just doing, and I agree, like, we can update the statistics, but his point is a comparison between the standard influenza and CVID, okay? At least 1 in 5 people worldwide were infected with swine flu during the first year of the 2009 to 2010 H1N1 pandemic, an international research group said, but the death rate was 0.02%, okay? So his whole thing is this. Your chances of dying in a vehicle crash, 1 in 103 or 1%. Most Americans are still most likely to die of natural causes, chiefly heart disease, a 1 in 6 chance, 17%, or cancer, 1 in 7, 14%. So his whole thing is like, it's not that we ought to not take it seriously, because it is a real thing. And his point was, in the statistics of the elderly or immunocompromised people, the death rates are much higher. But his point, and I agree with this point, is that I believe that the media is really, really, really feeding into people's mass hysteria and fear tactics right now. And I believe it's for several reasons. First of all, I think we live in a culture of fear. I think the second thing is, based on social media and how quickly we get the news, it's very, very easy to push those buttons with people. And now I want to say this. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't get into it. I'm not the guy who goes on there and research. I'm not that guy. I do think it's interesting. If you look historically, though, as to when these things came out, there's a very interesting corollary between certain world events with government and election cycles. I'm not saying they created this. I'm not saying it's something that anyone manufactured. But wouldn't it be interesting? Wouldn't it be interesting if the economy tanks,
which it has,
and all of a sudden, woohoo, the administration or a certain government goes, we have the cure now. We've saved everyone during an election year. Fascinating and interesting to consider. Not saying it's real. Interesting to consider. And beyond that, I just want to make this point. The average vaccine that a pharmaceutical company comes out with that hits the mass market on average makes $1 billion for a new vaccine on record. Okay? So there's a lot of money to be made. Do you think they're going to give this vaccine for free?
Well, not to mention,
fuck no, they're not.
We were talking about stockpiling. I mean, people that are buying hand sanitizer and all the, there's people are so afraid that they're going to stock up on all these things that they wouldn't normally buy, or they wouldn't buy in excess. So
it's big business.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think that's going to bring us soon into our discussion about events such as Natural Products Expo, which we want to talk about the business side of things like this. It can go both ways.
It can.
You can see it as, well, you're just capitalizing on the fear. You're capitalizing on health, concerns and all that. Or the opposite is true, where people don't seem sensitive enough to the situation and they're still trying to make money, given and not being aware of some people's personal choices to protect themselves.
Yeah,
right?
I want to say this because, again, I'm reiterating, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just look at history, right? And if you look at what is very, very profitable for a select few people, especially during times of contentious political times, war is very profitable and very good, especially if a specific government wins a war or shows, right? That's great to get reelected or great for a certain government's reputation. And also pandemics, right? You save people from a pandemic, or like, we found the cure. Like, pharmaceutical companies making shit tons of money from it, but also looks amazing for whatever government official or whatever group of government officials actually cured this thing. So I would not be surprised, A, if by the time the election rolls around, this thing is done with. I wouldn't be surprised. And also, to your point, Whitney, some people are losing a ton of money, like our colleagues, and we'll talk about that trade show. But the reality is war, pandemics, public crises that are fueled by fear are very, very, very beneficial and profitable for select few people. I do believe that. That is not conspiracy. It's fucking fact.
I mean, it's all interesting to consider, but you could say this about anything. Like, there's so many things going on, and the media, as we all should know, is driven by fear, right? For the most part. I mean, I'm overgeneralizing here. But,
a lot of it is.
News stations,
Yes.
especially, if you turn on the news, it's usually all of the horrific things going on in life. And I think it makes a lot of money because people want to buy things when they're afraid.
Yes.
People want to protect themselves. People
Yes.
want to be informed.
Yes.
People really do like being outraged too. I mean, there's a draw. This is why we like reality TV, is like we like to see drama. So people like to disagree with each other. People like to fight with each other, whether we want to admit it or not. It is a very entertaining thing for us. And I think we're in this time of information overload, where we just are consuming so much information. And what that can also lead to is a ton of confusion. And when
Agreed.
people are confused,
Agreed.
they're very, very vulnerable.
Agreed.
Right? So it is incredibly important for us to stay educated, but find ways to get some clarity. And I think, as I said earlier, one of my biggest pieces of advice is to read multiple sources and different types of sources. Don't just stick to one thing. Make sure that you're informed every day. You're not just basing things on things that were said 5 days ago or even yesterday,
Sure,
right? Because
sure.
new data is coming out. We're all learning. There's a lot of information that even the experts do not fully understand yet, right? So we are all figuring this out together. And I think that's why it's so important to be present,
Yeah.
and to be compassionate, to be open-minded,
Yes.
to be prepared, and to do whatever we can to stay as balanced about this as possible, versus going to the extremes, whether that's
Yeah.
fear or disbelief or
Yes.
outrage or fighting or so, either not protecting yourself at all or going to extremes of protecting yourself. You got to figure it out for yourself and what makes you feel comfortable. And lastly, I would say to not impose your beliefs on other people, because we have to respect one another in these times.
I agree.
Everybody has different education backgrounds. Everybody has different cultures. We live in different parts of the world. Like, people are going through this from a lot of different perspectives that we just might not understand.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful advice, Whitney. The thing that I want to reiterate too is that one can be continually educating oneself and prepared without doing it from a fearful, anxious place. That's the thing I want to, and I just want to, the image you mentioned that I didn't get a chance to share from the other day. And the reason I'm saying don't do this out of fear is because when you're in a vibration of fear, okay, and there's a lot of this in the book Power versus Force, of the energetic imprint of the vibrations you're carrying depending on your emotional state. Fear is above shame, but it's very, very low on the scale of energetic vibration, of like the energetic signature and the imprint you're putting out into the world, okay? When people are in a state of fear and confusion, they're very easy to control and manipulate, okay? Because it's not a high vibration. It's not a high energetic signature. So since 99-2000, this is what I posted the other day, and I had to reshare it.
On your Instagram.
On my Instagram, yeah. 99-2000, Y2K is going to kill us all. 2001, anthrax is going to kill us all. West Nile virus, SARS, bird flu, E. coli, the bad economy, the recession, the swine flu, BP oil, Obamacare, the Mayan calendar, end of the world, North Korea, Ebola, Disney's measles and ISIS, Zika virus, fake news, migrant caravans, measles, and coronavirus. Like, every single year, there's been something that the media has put out, I was going to say overhyped, but put out there with the idea that this is going to destroy humanity, to like almost as if it's a zombie apocalypse. Okay, this is not a zombie apocalypse. I want to remind everyone again, it's not to take precautions, it's not to be well informed. We as humanity have survived so much, and we will survive so much. And my point is, if we can move beyond the fear vibration and get to a point of feeling educated and empowered and balanced emotionally during times like this, we will thrive. But I'm encouraging everyone to not be taken advantage of. Please don't descend into fear-mongering, because it ultimately will go against your physical and mental health, which is right now we as humanity banding together. We need to have our physical and mental health and see clearly as much as we possibly can. That's my whole point. That's all I want people to do. That's really the core of this.
Yeah.
For me.
Well, I absolutely agree with the core of it. I think we just don't have all the information to, I mean, it is possible at some point there's something that wipes out all of humanity, right? We don't know.
It's possible. We don't know.
This could be it, right? And I think that's part of the fear is like we've thought, your point is we've thought that many times.
Decades.
Like, remember,
Decades.
Like we're always like waiting for the asteroid to hit us,
or the
right?
bomb to drop.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we can sit around, and it's just like whenever there are terrorist attacks and we get terrified to go to a public event. I know several people who they see something happening at a movie theater and they're afraid to go to the movies.
Sure,
they see something happening at a music event and they're afraid to go to a music event. That is a real thing because it's a possibility. But if we go through life feeling like, well, we can't do things, we can't live our lives anymore,
we're not
because
really
we're
living
so
then.
afraid. Yes.
Yeah, we're
And
not
I
really
think
living.
That's really important, and it is actually important for us to just take it day by day.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I would say is like, let's not get extreme and think this isn't going to kill us. It possibly could. It possibly could get very bad. And I think that is a good time to segue into what's going on with the Natural Products Expo.
So a little bit of background on that so the people don't know.
So
what
Jason and I, our favorite industry event working in the health and wellness world is something called the Natural Products Expo. If you've been listening and waiting for us to talk about this, thank you for your patience. And if you're someone that's not interested in trade shows, then maybe this is a good time to say goodbye.
But it is related to the topic, though.
Yes, absolutely.
It is very much related to the topic. Because
certainly is. But we saved it for the second section of this recording simply because we know that not everybody's going to care about this trade show. But I think it's not, what we're about to talk about isn't specifically, well, we will talk about some specifics of the Natural Products Expo, otherwise known as Expo West in Anaheim, California. But a lot of this information is going to apply to your choices to be part of any events. I mean, right now there's a huge video creators event called Playlist Live happening. My friend is at another event called Podfest for podcasters that I wish I was at. There's a lot of events happening.
The Geneva
all around
Auto
the
Show
world.
Also.
But wasn't that canceled?
It was canceled, and it was
but
like
I'm
a ghost
saying,
town.
I'm talking right now about the ones that are
the
live.
events
that are happening.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those events might be around 1,000 people, maybe less, maybe a little bit more. But the event that we're talking about, the Natural Products Expo, is upwards of 90 to 100,000 attendees and 3,000 exhibitors. It's a massive event that happens annually in Anaheim, California, outside of Los Angeles. And this would be my 11th year attending the event, Jason's 13th.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an event that we never miss. We are very passionate about it. We also have done a lot of work with New Hope, which is the company that organizes this event. So in full disclosure, we were recently featured as like the top 100 health and wellness influencers at this event. We are also in a gallery of influencers to know, and we were in a pre-show article that this company Nutra put out. I mean, we've been involved with a lot of different things expo related, gearing up and positioning ourselves and booking meetings. We have podcast guests scheduled for this week. This event is going to start in less than 48 hours on Wednesday, March 5th.
Yeah.
And it's been top of mind for us and something that I'm thinking about constantly throughout the last few days. Should we go to this event?
That's the question this morning right now, especially that, Whitney and I and a couple of really close friends of ours have been having an ongoing text thread with new information that Whitney's been sharing, not only in terms of the statistics and some of the things we mentioned about coronavirus and precautionary measures and updates on that, but the response that has come from Expo West, New Hope, the parent company, and some of the natural products companies that were going to exhibit but that have pulled out, and also some of our friends that are luminaries and colleagues in the wellness industry who are choosing not to attend and not to get on planes right now. So we're seeing a lot of attrition already in this incredibly massive trade show. One of the biggest things we go to every year, from not only the brand side, the companies that are exhibiting, which basically the companies that go there at this type of trade show, they're there with these beautiful, elaborate booths, often
Spending
tens of thousands, some companies hundreds of thousands. And the point of these companies, really briefly, is to not only get greater distribution and greater sales channels with big retailers like Amazon, Costco, Whole Foods, Target, Kroger, et al., but it's to debut brand new products that no one's ever seen before. So part of it is obviously for sales and distribution. Part of it is on the media and influencer side to debut new products, get the hype going, get the media coverage. So the ripple effect that this is having is massive, because literally hundreds of companies out of the 3,000 or so exhibitors have pulled out, and dozens of friends that we're seeing, it's just people are dropping out left and right. So
and there's right now they're predicting at least 40% less people will
minimum.
be attending.
They said 40 to 60%. That was the estimate.
And so that's a big difference, especially all these years that we've been going. And as somebody on the feed said, they're actually looking forward to having room to walk at the expo. So we can talk about the pros and the cons of this situation and how we're weighing out whether or not to attend.
Sure.
Right? At this moment, we do intend to attend this event.
We do.
Simply because we love it so much. But I think this is an opportunity for you, the listener, the viewer, to consider your decisions and how this could potentially affect you. Because as I said, this is a global issue that we're facing right now. This is an opportunity for us to really decide what's important to us, to decide how we're being proactive, how we're reacting to something like this.
Or responding.
Exactly.
Reacting or responding.
And the information that we're collecting. So I'll just start off by saying simply, I am taking this hour by hour. I am trying to stay very informed and trying to take in information from the industry. So the health and wellness industry, whether it's a brand or a media person such as ourselves, discussing whether or not they're going to attend. And we felt like this is an important issue because so many of our friends and so many of our connections are involved in this. So if you are listening or watching and you or yourself are somebody that typically attends this event, maybe you'll have some input to share in the comment section, or maybe just to hear our opinions on it. Jason and I also differ a little bit about this.
We do.
So just to give a little background about us, we planned for this every single year. Like I said, this is my 11th time, 13th time for Jason. So we plan out months and months in advance, if not a year in advance. We book our Airbnb every year. We get together with friends. We plan, the time. Like my whole schedule is blocked out.
We set up meetings
from
with
Wednesday.
brands.
Yep, we have a podcast guest that we're really excited to have on our show. At least one. We're going to participate in an event to feed the homeless, and that actually got canceled because it was packing food, and they were afraid of packing food and giving that to the homeless. I don't think I told you that yet.
No, you didn't.
And so there are numerous media events that we are going to go to throughout the next few days. And in terms of the business side for us, I wouldn't say this is a make or break event for us personally, but it does greatly impact us.
It does.
So for us, it is about connecting with people in person primarily. And that's a huge concern during this time is the in-person communication. If somebody's sick, or if somebody doesn't even know that they're sick yet, because you can contract, is that the right word?
Contract, yes.
Contract the virus and not even be aware, because you won't have symptoms for a few days. So it's possible through these interactions with people from all around the world, or at least different parts of the U.S., that you could be getting sick without even realizing it, right?
Right.
You're literally shaking hands with people. You're rubbing elbows with them, literally and figuratively. We're going to these meetings to discuss potential partnerships. And, it's not a huge deal for us. Our schedules can shift if we decide not to go, and we're not losing a lot of money. We've invested very little financially, and we won't really lose out on any major business deals.
Correct.
But this type of event is important for us. Not only is it because it's fun, but it's because of all the possibilities of it.
It's planting a lot of seeds.
Exactly. But that's the point, is is it a good time to plant seeds? That's what we are asking ourselves, and you, if you are yourself are debating that for this event or a similar event, how important is it for you? Is it worth the risk? And they're estimating 40 to 60% less people are. Is that what it is?
Correct. Yeah, that's
So
the estimate. But
40 to 60% of attendees have decided that they don't want to take the risk.
right.
And that's a really interesting position to be in. It's kind of like it's like flipping a coin. You know what I mean? Like, do I go or don't I go?
I mean, again, I go back to what I reiterated earlier is trust in God, but tie up your camel. I'm going to bring my colloidal silver. I'm going to bring my elderberry. I'm going to bring my oil of oregano. I'm going to bring my hand sanitizer. I don't intend on shaking hands with anyone. I don't intend on eating any samples that are left out in the open air. I personally, feel like I want to take mindful steps. I'm not going to go there with a fear vibration, but I think by being extremely present in all of my interactions is going to be key. And that takes a lot of energy to be that present in all of your interactions, especially if you're used to shaking hands, giving hugs, giving a kiss on the cheek, eating samples that are out in the open air. I mean, my whole thing is, again, I want to be mindful, but not fearful. Mindful, but not fearful. Responsive, not reactionary. So, I feel okay about going. I mean, I think for me, there are some ethics regarding the business practices that are dubious to me that we can or cannot touch on.
I think
but
we should.
but
Why
but
not?
but in terms of my physical health or feeling okay while I'm there, I feel okay about it simply because of the natural remedies, and I feel really strong and good immunity. But I'm not going to be careless while I'm there. I'm not going to be foolish or careless, and I'm going to be very present about my physical interactions and what I put in my mouth or on my body. Now, that doesn't guarantee anything, right? I'm not going in there hubristically or egoically like, I won't get sick, but I'm going to do everything possible because I do like the opportunity to connect with new brands, plant seeds, forge those relationships, because in the past that has been fruitful.
But isn't that something that you could do on the phone or in person at another time or through a Skype session?
Yeah.
Like, why can't you just... It's not dependent on this event.
It's not dependent, but I think there's something about having an in-person physical interaction with another person and getting to talk to them face to face that is, to me, it just feels a lot
But
more
I'm saying
personal,
you could
intimate.
do that. I mean, you just flew out to Buffalo, New York for an in-person meeting, right?
Well, no,
if it
that
really
was work.
important.
That was something I already booked, actually.
No, I'm
But
just saying, like, if a brand really or a person really wants to work with you,
That's
like,
true.
they can
That's
fly
true.
to you, you can fly to them, you can schedule it for another time. So
Yeah.
it's not a make or break situation. And
No.
part of my curiosity is, well, if hundreds of brands at this point that we know of have pulled out of this event, yeah, there may be, approximately 3,000 still there, but are they brands that you're going to want to work with? Are they brands that are at a point in their business that they can actually work with you? And we don't know. I mean, that's the big thing, and part of what I'm reflecting on a lot is there's like this fear of missing out.
There's
because
FOMO, right?
I love the Natural Products Expo so much.
Yeah.
But what I love is based on my previous experiences, the 10 shows that I've been to. I'm not guaranteed that this show is going to be worthwhile or beneficial in any way. So on one hand, I've given the opportunity to really let go of expectation and to go in and say, I have no idea what will happen if I go to the Natural Products Expo on Wednesday.
Yeah, it's just true.
Right?
That's true.
It might be awful. It might be wonderful. I might get sick. I might not. Right? Well, it's going to be something that we have. Well, I guess this is true of anything in life, is we've never experienced it before, right? Well, a lot of times we think that we have control or awareness based on previous information, but the truth is we never know if something is going to be good.
Okay, so this I need to get spiritual for a second, okay? Because I have to, because the nature of our reality here, I believe, is impermanence. It's ever changing, and it's always unknown. So by trying to predict things, which we love to do as humans to try and be safe and control our reality, The reality is, we don't know what's going to happen with the stock market. We don't know what's going to happen with the economy. We don't know what's going to happen with our health. We don't know what the future holds. We don't know what the people in our lives are going to decide to do with us in terms of the relationships, both intimate and business. We simply have no idea what is going to happen or wait for us. So we can either respond by, putting boards on the windows and boarding ourselves off and hiding away from humanity and being afraid to live, or we can say, I'm going to do the best that I have with the information that I have currently and continue to choose to live my life. That's the perspective I'm coming from, right? Is like, it's almost like if I don't go to Expo, then I'm like, oh, am I making a fearful decision? Like, I'm like, no, I want to go because I want to go because I'm still excited about it, right? Like, I still feel an excitement to go. And also, I feel a curiosity. It's almost like my curiosity to see how people are responding or reacting to this, seeing who actually does show up, talking to other health colleagues in our field about how they're responding to this, not just from a business perspective, but like what precautions or information do they have that maybe we don't have. So I'm curious to go for all of those reasons, and because you said this earlier. I mean, it's like, look, we could die at any moment. Like, I'm not being flippant or reckless when I say that, but it's like, we're all checking out at some point, okay? So I'm not gonna. It's the same thing. People are like, why do you ride a motorcycle? You could die. I'm like, I'm going to die. And so when I ride, I'm very mindful and present to what I'm doing and the riders around me, the drivers around me. It doesn't guarantee anything at all, but I don't know, Whit. I'm at this point where I'm like, I'm not gonna let fear control me. I'm just not gonna fucking let it.
Sure. And again, I think that's the big differentiation between the two of us, is that there's part of me that agrees with you, relates to that.
Yeah.
But then when I heard one of our friends who
good friends, yeah,
deeply respect and admire, and somebody that is a huge thought leader in the health industry, when he announced publicly that he was no longer attending this event, and then when I saw huge companies and the CEOs of these companies saying, we're not going and we're not letting our employees go, that's for me a red flag. That's for me saying there's a lot of very wise people and successful people that are willing to not go to this event
and eat the money. That's another part of this too. Like that's the other fascinating part.
That some of these companies are losing.
Oh my God.
And the opportunities that they could possibly be missing out on. And then it comes down to, do we ever really miss out on anything? Right?
Well, if you believe, again, that what is meant for us will find us, or will experience everything we're meant to, and trusting in that, whether you believe in God, spirit, universe, or nothing at all, then to your point, we're not ever missing out on anything that's meant for us.
Mm-hmm. I want to share a few of the comments that have come in.
Yeah, there's been, and by the way, thank you everyone for the comments. It's been really rolling in like people are very, very engaged with this conversation, and it's awesome.
And we have
thank
been
you guys.
talking for about 45 minutes. So if you haven't seen the whole talk, hopefully you'll go back and listen to it.
Yep.
Because we've shared a lot of different information about our perspectives on this that maybe you missed if you tuned in later. And we welcome you to continue the conversation in the comments section. We're broadcasting right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I think is that it right now? And LinkedIn, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of different places for you to chime in if you're interested. So Jana said, you can get just as sick, if not sicker, from the flu. Many, many people have only had mild cases of coronavirus and don't even know it. A lot depends on your health. Those that seem to get sicker have underlying health issues. I'm not going to freak out about this, and will not have the vaccine once it comes out, and continue to take care of ourselves. So it's in alignment with a lot of things we were talking about earlier. And then Janice also said, I think being in a place would be a showstopper just because it is confined. So I think she's talking about the expo here.
Yep.
Close quarters with bad ventilation and germs, hang out in ventilation screens and filters. And I doubt that the airlines are doing a very good job of sanitizing in between flights.
Hence the precautions I took.
I hope that they are.
Hence the precautions,
I certainly hope that airlines are doing big things, and it's a great opportunity for us to remind ourselves that somebody else was sitting in our airline seat, and maybe we should wipe down the surfaces. But it's true, we can't control the ventilation, right? And this has been a concern from Natural Products Expo every single year, because a lot of people get sick during the Natural Products Expo anyways. Right. You're talking to lots of people. You're stressed out. You're probably not sleeping as much. You're partying, perhaps. You're doing so much social. You're exerting a lot of energy. Then, yes, you're in this indoor area for like 8 or 9 hours a day and barely going outside in most cases, right? So there's a lot of factors that go into this event. And I think if we do decide to go, or if you or I, who knows, if we'll both go to this, hopefully we will, but I think we have to take a very, very mindful approach to it to make sure that we wash our hands at least once an hour, that we're careful about who we're touching,
Correct.
that we go outside maybe once an hour, which is not something we normally do, that we stop rushing from meeting to meeting, that we're mindful of our stress, that we make sure we get enough sleep,
Right.
and don't compromise our sleep simply because we want to go hang out with somebody later at night. Neither one of us really drink alcohol, but we'll be extra careful about things like that and our sugar consumption. I certainly don't intend on eating packaged or unpackaged foods.
Agreed.
Right? So
Agreed.
foods that have been sitting out for a while, that have potentially been touched
Agreed.
by somebody else accidentally, whether or not someone was wearing gloves. Like, just
Totally.
being very, very mindful about those things would be my intention going in. But coming back to my point that I made earlier, that doesn't guarantee that we won't get sick. And so basically we have to go into this almost as if thinking the chances of us getting sick are much higher than usual. And are we okay with that? That's the question, right? It's not coming from a place of ignorance here.
Yeah,
Here.
for sure. Being mindful, being precautionary.
So the last thing we want to touch upon here, unless any other topics are brought up in the live comment section, is the issue of some of the business ethics that have been going on here. And there's a lot of different information being spread around the web. Actually, my favorite sources right now are on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a platform. I think we're broadcasting on LinkedIn right now. I'm not sure if that worked with our setup here.
Yeah.
But
there's some fascinating information from a business and a financial perspective regarding the ramifications of cancellations during a trade show. And certainly, as Whitney and I have been going for, 10 and 13 years respectively, we've gone on the side of content creator, brand partner, influencer. We've never really been privy to the financial dynamics of the deposits and the cost and the expense of a brand or a company going to this trade show. And as we mentioned, depending on the scale and the size of the brand and the booth and how many employees and the complexity of the setup, it can be tens or in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this 1 4-day trade show. So this is not especially for small business, this is not a light decision for small emerging companies, local companies. It's a very big decision on whether or not they're going to exhibit. So I know Whitney uncovered some really fascinating stuff regarding the implications of these brands pulling out at the last minute.
Yeah, I highly recommend that you, the listener and the viewer, do some research yourself. One hashtag that's been going around on LinkedIn, it seems like it's not been very popular on any other social network like Facebook or Twitter.
Or Instagram yet?
I haven't looked on Instagram yet, but there's a hashtag cancel Expo West.
Is there really? Let me see.
And for me, I think cancel. I'm not a fan of the cancel culture. I think postpone, reschedule would be a more empowering word.
Oh, wow.
But there's a lot of information. So if you're curious, I would go on LinkedIn specifically and look up hashtag cancel Expo West. Actually, I'm going to share my screen right now so that everybody can see this. So let's see. So here we have a LinkedIn post. This is the hashtag that I was referring to. So if you click on it, you can actually follow it and see all the discussions happening. This was really interesting. Sagan Schultz, I think, who's the co-founder and CEO at Well MD, wrote an open letter to New Hope that not only was interesting, but there's 135 comments on there that were very enlightening. And he actually surveyed a bunch of people to get their opinions on this, and it was really fascinating, basically talking about how brands are not happy. He got 508 people to respond to this survey, right?
Wow.
Yesterday, March 1st.
This is interesting.
And it was brand founders, and they talked about, do they feel like it's unethical for brands to choose between losing their financial investment and putting their teams at risk? Do they have their best interest in mind when it comes to safety decisions?
Does who have their best interest?
Whether or not they believe New Hope Network,
which is the creator and the founders and
correct
progenitors of Expo West.
whether or not they have a meaningful amount of investment, time and money if they decide not to attend Expo West. I mean, you can read this for yourself. So again, if you just search for the hashtag cancel Expo West, that's really interesting. And then also just, oh wow, yeah, Milkademia just announced. I mean, like reading these things like literally feels heartbreaking to me because I love companies like Milkademia. You know, like hearing that some of my favorite brands aren't going to be there. And there's like the selfish side of me. I was telling Jason last night, like I feel like I'm a kid on Halloween and I have my outfit picked out, my costume, and I've been looking forward to it all year long because it only happens once a year. This is my favorite time of year. And I put on my costume and then it starts to rain. And then I have to decide, do I go out or not? You know, or your parents decide this, like, are you going to get sick for going out, right? So then your parents say, okay, you can go out. But then you find out your friends aren't coming. So now it's not going to be as fun because your friends aren't coming. Yeah. And then you find out that your parents say you can only go if you wear your boots and your raincoat, you know, and suddenly Halloween is not the same as it has been before. And maybe you're going trick-or-treating and there's less people giving out candy and you're like, well, what happened to all the candy I got in the past, right? Like my favorite house is closed today because it's raining and they didn't feel like going to the store to get the candy, right? Like put yourself in that shoes of what it's like to, and many of us have experienced that disappointment if you've celebrated Halloween in your life. Of that as a kid, and a lot of people have equated Expo West to trick-or-treating because the generosity that these brands have in sharing samples of their products is unlike anything else I've ever witnessed. Some people do go to Expo, whether I don't really agree with this choice, but some people do go to the Expo simply just to get samples.
Yeah, we call it vulture time. We call it vulture time. There's a specific time on the last day of Expo, the last 4 to 5 hours, where brands will really not want to take all of their samples back to their corporate headquarters, but people have literally taken pieces of their booth, one-of-a-kind pieces of displays that they literally don't even ask. So
it's not recommended.
We call it vulture time because there are people that go there literally just to, for lack of a better word, I'll call it pillage. There's a certain energy.
But with that aside, you know, Jason and I, we go there for business. We go there because we want to celebrate these brands, to meet the brands, to talk to the brands, to make connections. We want to try the food too. We don't necessarily need to take samples home. But like seeing Milkademia not being there, I'm like, great. Like that is so sad because they probably have a brand new product out that this is the place where you get to try new products. Well, this is where you get to debut it.
And I said, like, they also get the media coverage for that too. It's such a great place to debut because of the coverage.
The magazines and the podcasts like ours and the social media platforms. And there's a lot of that. But I will say, based on everything I'm reading, I think exhibitors, and this has been true for many years, but it's still true today, is that they are there mainly to get distributors and buyers.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Like the media, the influencers are just icing on the cake for most of these brands. Most of these brands are wanting to get into stores.
And they want an ROI. They want some sort of measurable direct ROI.
Exactly. Right. So it is heartbreaking to see this and to come back around to some of those posts here just to see some of the different perspectives that have been coming up. I mean, it like just seeing this post is sad and this is interesting too. So Milkademia is using the hashtag
cancel Expo West,
and they say we stand with our community. So it would not surprise me if Expo West gets canceled today or tomorrow because of the amount of outrage.
Well, yeah,
right?
I want to talk about why the outrage though, because we haven't mentioned why.
Yes, we're getting there. And just again, the other thing that you can do if any of you are interested in reading about this more, click on the hashtag Expo West, as some of you may have found this video through, right? And this is where you will find a lot of great articles, and this is another one from Daniel Lubetsky, the founder and executive chairman of Kind, I believe. Yes, of Kind, right? I mean, this is like, again, talk about somebody who is very well respected in his field.
Kind bars, by the way, guys. If you guys have seen the protein or the granola bars from the Kind brand.
So he wrote an article about this and some of the political and ethical sides of this, and there's 238 comments. Plus, I found one other post earlier today. If you scroll through, I mean, there's a lot of people talking about this in Expo, right? there are posts from people having open forums on here.
I wanted to say it's going viral, but that would have been a poor joke, poor taste.
Right.
So I didn't.
Yeah, probably not the
Yeah,
best
probably
use
not
of
the
words.
best
But
use
if you
of
look
words.
at this, right, like it is breaking my heart to read this, right? Like as the CEO of Tea Drops, which is
Small
another
business.
company I love,
Small business.
says this was us last week in the midst of booth preparations, and they made a difficult decision this morning to cancel exhibition. So this is the thing. I mean, we have to be prepared as attendees that Expo West may be canceled. Like here we are trying to decide
48
whether or
hours
not
to go.
we're going to attend.
Less than 48
but it
hours.
might not even happen.
And we have less than 48 hours.
It could be
right?
we could get there on Wednesday, and it could be canceled Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's a 4-day event for anyone who's unaware, right? So we have to go, if we're going to make the decision to go, we have to go in knowing that it could be all taken away from us, right? And that's the interesting thing here. Now, I know you really want to touch upon the ethical, the business side of this, so I'd love to hear your perspectives on that as well, Jason, based on what you've read.
So from what I've read so far, again, Daniel's post from Kind and some of the other major threads, Whitney, that you turned me on to, I didn't know this. Again, you and I as brand partners, media creators, influencers, for lack of a better word, friends, that we go in not knowing, right, the particular business arrangement that brands go through. But this has been an eye-opening experience because not only are the deposits and the booth reservations collected a year in advance, right? So everyone who booked their booth for 2020 had to book them in 2019, like right after the 2019 show. That's just the system that New Hope has in place. But I didn't know this until we read this on LinkedIn. Again, we don't know if this is absolute truth, but enough people have commented on it, so I'm apt to believe it, that if you cancel your booth, or some of the brands that have canceled their booths, that New Hope, the parent company of Expo West, has not confirmed that they're going to be issuing any refunds. And that's concerning because a lot of these small brands that are operating on razor-thin margins to get their products into the world, that can be crushing if they've put thousands of dollars down, crushing for their bottom line. That's the first ethical thing, is refusing to give out refunds. The second thing that several people commented on is the brands that have pulled out, they apparently supposedly are giving those spots to people on a waiting list. So not only purportedly are they keeping people's deposits for brands that have canceled because of coronavirus concerns, but they're making double the money because they're giving the booth space to a new brand on the waiting list. Like that is extremely, if that is true, that's extremely unethical to me. Extreme unethical. Like that's greed and lack of concern and respect beyond. And if that is true, if it proves to be true, Whit, it gives me pause on whether or not beyond this show I actually want to support anymore. It really does. I'm going to be blunt about it.
Well, sure.
If that's true.
I think it's important to try to find the source of this information to see how they're going to respond.
Yep.
And also remember that sometimes people a lot of times people make decisions out of fear. So it's possible that a company like New Hope is incredibly fearful of what happens in the future, right? Like there's another event organization that Jason and I have been involved with, and they recently decided to cancel their events, and their reason was because the coronavirus was affecting them so much financially. That they had to, because their events were so international based, they had to cancel everything worldwide, and it caused a backlash of people questioning, is this true or not? But I think, based on our inside information, the reason the founders decided to cancel all of their events is because if they invested all that money into these events and people didn't show up, they would have lost so much money they wouldn't have been able to continue as a company.
That would bankrupt them.
Sometimes people are making decisions out of preservation. And what can happen, I think this is very important to address, is that we don't get into a blame consciousness. As I said from the very beginning, we need to be respectful. We need to really be mindful that we don't know what's going on in the heads of the people that are running this event.
True.
Right? We don't know why they're making those decisions. We don't know if it's just a rumor. We're hearing this secondhand, right? There are examples of people are cutting and pasting the things that they've been receiving. But it's like kind of this thing like jumping on the bandwagon of outrage, right? Somebody's like, I can't believe that. And then everybody else starts to
get escalates quickly.
By it.
Right.
And so it's a slippery slope. And I think that we have to know that we don't have all the information at this moment.
True.
We're trying to stay on top of it, and that's why we're encouraging you as well to follow the hashtags for this event or another event if you're curious about it. Like, continue reading about it, talk to people, and then let your voice be heard in a respectful way. As opposed to like, how dare you? Maybe say, is this true? I heard this. Is this true? Can you go ask somebody that's the head of an organization? Can you ask their PR company? Can you try to collect as much data as you can before making a full assessment on it, is my recommendation. Because I certainly don't want to burn any bridges. Like, New Hope has been an incredible organization for many, many years. We've done a lot. They've highlighted us as influencers. I have done projects with them. I've been involved in events and gatherings and groups and so many different things. And I love this show so much. I don't know all of the organizers personally, so who knows? Like, maybe they don't align with my ethics, but maybe they do, and I'm just misunderstanding the situation.
True.
Or, which I think is probably the most likely scenario, is perhaps they made a poor decision that they're going to change.
Or make amends for.
I think it's important for us to, forgive people. Maybe we don't forget, but we can forgive people for making a decision, especially if it comes out of fear.
Yeah.
Maybe it came out of misinformation on their end. A lot of people are thinking like, well, don't they have insurance for these type of situations? Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
If it's a policy, like when you agree to something, you can't, if you sign a piece of paper that says no refunds after this date
and no exceptions. Then that's
this sort
true.
of thing happens.
True.
Maybe you never predicted this scenario, but technically you did agree to those terms, and that's a way in which people legally protect themselves and financially protect themselves.
That is true. That is
true.
On
the other hand, we certainly feel conflicted because we know how tough it is for these brands and how many of these brands depend upon going to this event. And it does put them in a rock and a hard place where they have to decide, do we participate in this event simply because we can't afford not to, but we are doing it at the risk of our health, and that's the scary thing, right? That's what it ultimately comes down to. There is a risk involved. Maybe it's not as bad as the media wants us to believe it is. Maybe it is. And if a brand goes there and their entire team gets sick and they can't work for weeks, or maybe some people die as a result of it, like,
it's a risk. It's a risk. It's a
tough.
Constant risk reward balancing. I think what you're alluding to, right? Not just financially, but in terms of the human impact, it's constant risk versus reward. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really what it is can I engage in this situation, this event, participate in this thing? Is it worth the potential? Are the rewards worth the potential risks? Not just financially, but in terms of health. I mean, I think that's for all of us right now, considering this in terms of humanity, right? I mean, we kind of blow this out beyond Expo West for a moment just to think, okay, is it worth me going to a sporting event, a concert, a trade show, being around people from all over the world, not knowing who they interacted with? I mean, again, I think being aware, being informed, being mindful, whatever that means to you, the listener or the viewer, that's all we can do is empower ourselves and be educated, trust our intuition. Ultimately, I think that's it too, is be informed. But listen, you got to trust your intuition. If there's something telling you not to go to something and you're aware that like, okay, this is an intuitive hit, I think it's important that we really listen to that.
I'm excited or honored, I should say, grateful for this comment who came from somebody from one of the companies, Nina Chocolate, which
we love Nina.
Love.
We love Nina. Hi,
Ron.
Ron
Just said they, meaning New Hope, absolutely must cancel and reimburse. We booked our booth on the second day of Expo last year. The show was so bad, however, that we canceled our booth right after the show. We're fortunate that we did, and I can only imagine how upset we'd be right now if we hadn't canceled and gotten reimbursed. For us, Expo lost it last year because they grew too big to be an effective investment for a small company. They better do the right thing.
Thank you, Ron.
And
Thanks for that
is
input.
the sentiment of most brands.
Yes.
I mean, I'm still going through, like, I honestly could spend all day researching this. Like, I'm so invested in this event, and I'm so curious. This is why we're doing this
live
special broadcast today, is because the two of us are feeling a lot of different things, and our hearts go out to small brands, especially brands that we met through Expo. I think that's actually how
like
we met
Nina
Chocolate,
exactly.
Right? I mean, if you don't know about them yet, we'll give them a shout out. They make wonderful, high quality, vegan
superfood chocolates.
Superfoods
oh
chocolates.
My God.
It's incredible, right? And very unique. And it's because of these trade shows that we know about brands like them. However, as we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of factors involved financially, especially business-wise overall for these brands. And some of them don't do well. We actually were just talking to another chocolate company that we know, a very small company, yesterday, and they said, we don't do Expo anymore because it wasn't worth the money that we invested. We didn't get the outcome, the return on investment we wanted. And some brands don't, And so I can't imagine how incredibly challenging this time is for a small brand who, spent the money, got into the hype, and now suddenly they're thinking, wow, there's going to be upwards of 60, maybe even 80% less people there, and Whole Foods isn't going to be there, and all of these
Amazon's
major
not gonna be there.
distributors, these
Costco's,
buyers aren't going to be there.
Yep.
What's the point of me going? But I can't get my money back. And we both know on a personal level as business owners ourselves, a lot of times money is very tight, and a lot of times we are not in a financial position to
absorb that loss. Yes, exactly. And my thing is this, okay, and again, we don't know all of the details. Clearly we don't. I mean, again, we only know what is being relayed to us. For me as a business owner, though, okay, we have a bit for us, okay. I think about a customer life cycle in the sense of, if I do right by someone, and this happened like what's happened many times, where someone bought something and they're like, I didn't like it, and I had a no refund policy. Right? And there was one example I remember on a course that I did where a woman was like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I'm like, no refunds. And she was like, yeah, but I'm not going to use it. I don't really like it. And she explained it. And I went back on my no refund policy because she made a case and she protested. And I wanted to make sure that that person felt heard, felt taken care of, and that person was going to continue to know, like, and trust me. So again, I don't know the specifics of this because fear does crazy things and panic does crazy things to people. That's for me, the overarching message of this energetically and spiritually is fear and panic does crazy shit to people. But from a New Hope perspective, I think my input would be, what can we do to make sure these people feel heard and taken care of? Because this is a partner that I want for life. I want them to come to Expo East in September in Philadelphia. I want them to come to Expo West next year. It's not just about making money on this one event. I'm thinking, okay, for instance, Whitney, if I couldn't give a refund, I would say, well, we can apply that money to your booth at Expo East. We can take that same money and apply it there. To me, I feel from a business perspective, if New Hope was to make some sort of a gesture where they are showing their partners and their brands and companies, their exhibitors rather, that they feel taken care of and heard, then there's going to continue to be a know, like, and trust factor where you're going to keep doing business. If they're shooting themselves in the foot at this one event, it is going to affect their future business model. It will. It can't help but affect that.
Right.
So I think, and I hope they're considering that. I hope they're considering that.
And again, we have never run an event at the level that New Hope has.
No, not with
right?
90,000 people.
And we were not in their position. So I'm just going to continue to encourage each of you listening, as you're building your opinions, as you're making your decisions, is to read directly from them. So one of the things is here, let's click on this link. There is a bunch of statements that they put out. They have a page.
Oh, and they updated it.
They are constantly updating it to give as much advice as possible. There are, let's see, there's a ExpoWest.com is also a place. They updated this yesterday. They have not, as I've seen,
this is an open
updated
letter.
It today.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it yet, they did update. Oh, look at this.
Oh,
they updated
today.
this recently. So the companies that are not exhibiting at Natural Products Expo, they're updating this throughout the week. And it's a long list. It got a lot longer since I checked it earlier.
But again,
and there's some of my favorite brands are on this list here. I don't know where they stand about refunding people. I don't know if they're making official statements on that. But I have seen somewhere, it's hard to keep track of everything that I've read here, but it was somewhere related to Expo West. I found a post where there was like 900 comments in there of people talking about Let's see, sort by top.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I know. Or you can actually go here and look by recent, so you can see the recent comments, the recent updates. More people like Hillary's Eat Well. They
Oh,
just decided to
Maggie.
cancel. That's what I'm saying. Like people that we know and love are canceling.
Wow. Yeah,
this.
friends of ours, actually. This is
15
fascinating.
minutes, like every few minutes here.
Well,
it's coming up.
It seems that, this is kind of showing the power of social media in the sense that if these brands are standing together in terms of, sort of a solidarity is the right word, right? Of saying like, hey, if all of our friends who have brands are canceling and they're doing it for ethical. Oh, Sonyar. Wow, there's so many. This is fascinating. This is absolutely fascinating to us.
It's truly fascinating, and it's so. It
Wow.
breaks my heart every post. I can't say that enough.
So, I mean, this is just, boy, wow. I mean, there's so many layers to this conversation. Not just the economic, but again, the ethical implications of all this, and to see how they're going to be responded to. I don't know. It's interesting. It's really interesting.
I wish I could find that one post. Maybe.
But again, I go back to Whit, if I may, real quick, while you're searching for this post, is if we extrapolate this and we zoom out kind of from a macro perspective. We're talking about trade shows now. The Geneva Auto Show, one of the world's biggest auto shows, got canceled, and it looked like a ghost town. And they canceled it after companies set up their booths. There were cars there already. The booths were already set up. So you have this perspective of the Geneva Auto Show where all of these amazing cars are there, and there's zero people. It's like it's ghost town status. Mm-hmm. My point was this, though. How far do we go with this? Do we cancel all concerts? Do we cancel sporting events? Do sports teams just simply cancel their seasons? There's no way.
It's a matter
of
how many people. Like I know in maybe it's Switzerland or some country, they were saying that if it was over 1,000 people, they were canceling events. Like they were banning events with more than 1,000.
Right.
People.
See, but here in the U.S., man, like as say sports and concerts are billion-dollar industries, I can't see, say, the NBA or the NHL or the Rolling Stones or Lady Gaga or anyone like canceling a tour when it's, billions of dollars. Do you know what I mean? Like, I understand why trade shows are choosing what they're choosing, but as a society, how far do we take this?
Mm-hmm. Well, I just
how far do we take it?
The post I was looking for. So if you... I couldn't tell you exactly how I found it, but Natural Products Expo. Okay, so I was looking under New Hope. Let me bring this up in a separate window as well so you can see. Because there's a New Hope Network has their own account, and then Natural Products Expo has their own account on LinkedIn. I'm sure on Facebook. They definitely do on Facebook. I don't know. It seems to me so far that LinkedIn has been the most informed because it's a lot of professionals writing. It's not just random people writing their opinions.
Correct.
It's like CEOs are coming in and sharing their opinions here on LinkedIn. So if you go to the Natural Products Expo page, which is linkedin.com/showcase/natural products, well, you can see it here at the top, hopefully, or just search for it on LinkedIn, right? Their very top one has 634 comments.
Wow.
And it's being updated regularly and people writing. Please comment on this post to share if you're participating, right? And the great majority of comments on here are not going, right? And some of these are...
Goodness gracious.
...are being updated. Like I'm sure some people are changing their
634
minds.
comments. My God.
Yep.
My God.
I mean, and a lot of different opinions being shared on here. So this is where I recommend going to stay informed on this event. Just go on LinkedIn, let your voice be heard, have some conversations. Again, be respectful about it. Like there's no need to share your anger. If you want to do it, I recommend doing that privately. Send a message to the people at New Hope. You can go to the website newhope.com to find contact information. You can go to expowest.com. There might be some contact information here. I'm not sure, but you could also look up the contact information from Fred and Scott, Carlotta, any of these people who might be posting. And you might be able to get in touch with them directly and have a civil conversation. That's what I recommend. Because as we said earlier, yes, people want to be outraged right now. People want to share their strong opinions. They want to share their disappointment. But is that really making a difference? Is that a productive thing to do? What would be productive to me is to kindly share your opinion, and you can be strong about it too. Kindness does not need to be weak
or divisive or confronting. Right, exactly. Right.
So you could be very respectfully and professionally share your opinion, let people know how you're feeling, publicly share things, like make it part of a productive part of the conversation is my big recommendation. And before we wrap things up, as we have been talking for quite some time now, thank you so much if you've been listening and or watching the entire time. We appreciate it. And again, I'll remind you, we're about to read some live comments here, but if you have comments after we finish this broadcast, you can write them right in the comment section on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitter, where we've been broadcasting, and wherever else we posted on Instagram, etc. Okay, so let's see.
So many incredible comments.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate your engagement. Thank you.
We do. Oh, I really like this, Terry, and thank you for this positive perspective. By attending, I hope to provide support for the small businesses who can't afford to pull out.
Love that perspective.
And that's beautiful. Thank you so much for saying that.
Especially if we give them love on social media, put them on our Instagram, like give them extra love. Mm-hmm. Man, that's a great perspective.
But also as a reminder that we can do that virtually, and again, some people may want to attend this event simply because they paid for their plane ticket, they paid for their hotel, whatever, their Airbnb. I know our Airbnb will give us a full refund as long as we cancel by tomorrow. It really depends on the specific arrangements that you have. Most hotels will give you your money back or cancel it with no fees as long as you send them cancellation like 24 hours in advance. So it's certainly okay. And I think airlines, I don't know exactly what they're doing, but you might be able to at least get some money back. Like, you don't have to do this in most cases, but I don't know. Some people might have extenuating circumstances that they feel like it's worth the risk, as you're saying.
Right.
For us, we have the luxury of being an hour away from Anaheim, and we can just drive down from Los Angeles and cancel our hotel, our Airbnb if we need to.
I mean, that's an option if we wanted to. If we wanted to take it day by day, we could. We are in a different
situation than some people who might be flying from different parts of the country or the world. So again, each of us have to make the decisions based on the variables that we're going through. But I just wanted to say that we can support brands virtually. I was talking to Jason earlier about how I want to find a way to support all these brands. Looking at that list of companies that have canceled. I mean, again, that's a long list. If you missed it earlier, I'll pull it up one more time. It's on the Expo West website. This is a list of all the brands as of 3 hours ago who have pulled out, and the list looks like it's doubled since it was updated last night.
Yeah, and again,
right?
they
maybe tripled.
Well, they have around 3,000 exhibitors, so this could be maybe 200 to 300. So maybe it's 10% conservatively. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's 10%. Mm-hmm. Okay, so
which doesn't sound like that much, but who knows how many people are on the fence and considering to cancel later on, right?
I think statistically too, and I just want to do a throwback to coronavirus, because that's the whole point of all of this confusion and heartbreak and contentiousness. All of this is a result of that, right? Everything we're discussing is a result of that, and I'm not saying this to be insensitive, because for those of you who know me, I'm clearly an extremely sensitive guy, but to look at that and say, okay, there's 3,000 exhibitors, and if 300 pull out, that's 10%. Okay, that's that. And I'm not saying that's not a massive amount, but I just want to make this one point. As far as we know, there's so far I think there's about 85,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus, around 85,000, okay? The reason that I am not panicked around, one of the big reasons, okay, is we have 8 billion people on the planet. 10% of that would be 800 million people. 1% of that is 800,000. If there's 85, and I'm not saying it's not going to go up, it likely will, but 0.01, 1/10 of 1% of people on the planet are infected currently, and we're calling it a pandemic. It's not even 1%.
Because I think it's the the speed at which
I understand that, but it's the one way that I've overcome the fear and the panic is to go, there's 8 billion people, 85,000 are infected. That's 1/10 of 1%. I'm like,
mm-hmm. I get your point, but we also have to think about it from different perspectives. I think as somebody who's very sensitive to numbers, both of us are, It's like we are individuals. We're not just a number.
Agreed. And that's
right?
why I'm not being
We're
insensitive.
not one
I'm not being
of
insensitive.
90,000 people. We're individuals here. And so we have to look at this from a very individual standpoint and say, wow, it's really sad that this brand isn't going to be there. And
or the people
I can't
that have,
tell you how many brands I see and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was specifically looking forward to seeing them.
Yeah.
And I also want to remind you, Jason, that since you and I are plant-based, there's maybe only a few hundred brands that have plant-based products. So out of that 300, that might be a huge majority of plant-based brands. I know Beyond Brands, like Beyond Meat, I think, or Beyond Brands, maybe Beyond Brands is
it's a different
company. I don't know if Beyond Meat's going to be there, but I'm just saying, like, a lot of these brands I look forward to seeing are not going to be there this year.
Yep.
So I actually probably will go through the list and check and see if some of my favorite brands are going to be there. Because if they're not, like, maybe there's some brand new brands I have not experienced yet, but it's like all things into consideration. So I'm going into this event to potentially get sick. For what point?
I see your
if
point.
Some of my favorite people aren't going to be there,
point.
if some of my favorite brands aren't going to be there, if events are being canceled, granted, you and I have the big guests that we're looking forward to having on our show. And for me, that's a huge reason to
Yes,
go.
it is.
But we can also have that guest on our show another time. Like, we don't have to do it this week. We could do it some other time when this guest is in town, right? And that's the important point, is this fear of missing out. And this goes out earlier. If you are really looking forward to trying samples and all of that, like, email the companies and say, hey, I'm really sad you're not going to be at the expo. I'd love to give you some media coverage, or I'd love to introduce you to a local store. Whatever you can do to support these brands, you can do that from afar.
Yeah.
And same goes if a brand that you love is going to be there, but you don't plan on going there, like, tell them, hey, I decided not to go to this event, and I would love to still experience your product. I'd love to find a way to support you from afar. And you can do that with our podcast guests, with our friends, with anybody else. You can reschedule for another time. And lastly, I would say that some people are actually doing virtual events. I just saw. So there are like virtual versions of Expo happening now, which I think is pretty cool. And there's events happening in Boulder, Colorado in May. They're
and
planning a free version of Expo that you can go to. Granted, you'd have to be willing to travel to Boulder, but Boulder is a wonderful place. So Jason and I are both thinking, maybe we'll go to that event. But there are going to be alternatives to Expo, and there already are. There's Fancy Food Show, which is coming up in June, which is phenomenal. You haven't been to it yet, Jason.
It's true.
At least the one in New York. We just went to the one in San Francisco. It's fantastic. It's not the same as Expo, but a lot of these events are equally as wonderful. So there are other things that you can do if you have the luxury of being able to.
I just wanted to pull out just to show you guys. So I go back to my solutions and my remedies. I just want to reinforce that as we're wrapping up. 2 things that I keep on my person, literally in my pocket all of the time, anytime I leave the house. One is this brand called, I don't know if they can see it. It's called Cleanwell, and it's a natural hand sanitizer. It's a spray hand sanitizer. I use that whenever I pump gas. I use it on the plane. I use it whenever I'm touching any surface, anywhere, right? Like any public surface, I have my Cleanwell hand sanitizer. The other thing, and this is antiviral, it's immune support, it's awesome, is colloidal silver. So in terms of immune boosting, antiviral properties, antibacterial, colloidal silver, I keep a spray bottle on my person. I spray my face, I spray my mucous membranes, I put it in all of my orifices, and I spray my hands with it or anything, again, that I'm coming in contact with. So the 2 things that I can recommend that I'm traveling with constantly is the hand sanitizer, and Whitney's going to show you how to use it. Yeah, you spray, you spray it in your mouth, you spray it in your nose, not in your nose, but on your nose. Basically, the point is that the antiviral, antibacterial properties of this, and you do the Cleanwell. And so all you do is do like 2 or 3 sprays on your hands.
And it smells really
It smells great. You keep these in your pockets. And so, again, not fear, not because I'm scared out of my mind over this fucking thing, but because I want to be prepared and I want to be mindful, right? So you can be prepared, you can make decisions, but you don't have to do it from a fear or panic space. And again, I go back to my point, is band together, communicate, be informed, but please, please, please do not let fear, anxiety, and stress rule this for you right now, because people are going off the rails right now, and we do not know. We need people to be clear, and we need people to be helpful. We need people to be compassionate. And if you're in stress, fear, and anxiety, it's very, very hard to be that way for yourself and others.
Mm-hmm. A shout out to the Boulder Natural Products Summit, which is a community-led alternative to Expo West that Corinne just asked about. If you go on Eventbrite, you can just search for Boulder Natural Products Summit. I don't know very much about it. I just saw it come up and I thought it was really cool. So this is an option. You could start your own as well. If you're somebody that loves to organize events, we encourage you to take the lead. And again, there's so much information I can toggle through. Like I've been finding just a lot of these details on LinkedIn. I also did a Google search. So I typed in Expo West virus and then changed it to, if you didn't know how to do this, I'll give you a little tutorial right now. So when you go to Google, up at the top, you can click news, and then you can click on tools and choose past week or past 24 hours. Like, let's try that. And it'll show you any of the new articles that have come up, right? And so you can read more about this. You can even create an alert for yourself. You'll be emailed if that is something that you're interested in and whatever new information comes up. And then let's see, what else have I been searching for?
Any other resources for information?
So many. I mean, you sent me this, Jason. This is what a trade show
Oh
canceled
man, look
by
at this. Yeah.
looks
So this
like.
is the Geneva Auto Show, guys. One of the biggest, most expensive, fanciest auto shows where, again, much like Expo West, these brands debut brand new cars there. It's a huge thing, and it's literally a ghost town. It's deserted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as I said, Expo West has a lot of the most up-to-date information. If you go to their website, expowest.com, and then let's see, it's not that easy to find, unfortunately. I feel like it should be top of their page. But if you go to venue and travel, there's is it COVID or COVID? How do you pronounce it? I don't know.
COVID.
A lot of us call it coronavirus, but it's COVID-19. If you click on that, that has all this information that I was sharing, including updates on the brands that are pulling out. So if you want to research that, you can also go to the exhibitor list. I do not know for sure if they're updating this every time a brand pulls out. Let's just see here. What brand do we know? What's Hail Mary's? Drink, Eat Well is their company. Drink, Eat. Yeah, it doesn't come up anymore. It wasn't Hail Mary.
Is Sun Warrior still on there?
Let's see. Well, let's just go here and copy and paste, like 88 acres. You could copy that into the exhibitor list.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's no longer on their list.
Okay.
So you could go through here. It says there's 3,699 entries. So that means there's upwards of that many people exhibiting. I don't know what the number was previous to today. So again, it's really hard to say. If you really need information, you might want to go on their social media and check to see if they're posting about it. So that's helpful. I recommend expowest.com, go to their exhibitor list, and then also New Hope's website has some data, not quite as much, but New Hope is the parent company, and they're trying to post as much as possible. I know Rebel's not going, which is sad too. I mean, it's sad. It's a sad time.
Well,
we thank you for listening. We thank you for being part of the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for the comments and input, guys.
Yes,
and gals.
It's been helpful for us to figure this out. Sometimes talking things through with friends and talking things through with people you're meeting online or through a hashtag can be really helpful. And thank you to Terry for acknowledging the balanced, level-headed discussion. And reminding us that there's no bad choice here. There's no right or wrong.
Exactly.
So
that's an important thing to remember.
What you decide to do and how you decide to approach what's going on with the world's health at the moment is really a personal choice. And there's no right or wrong decision. You do that with the information that you have, with the experience that you have, with the mindset that you have. And we're here for you. If you have any other questions, you can reach us collectively. We have our brand Wellevator. That's WELLEVATR. You can go to our website. You can come see us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. You can direct message us on those platforms. Or I don't know if you can do that on Twitter, but on Facebook and Instagram, you can direct message. You can send us emails. You can comment on these posts wherever you're seeing this. Mm-hmm. And again, we have our podcast, This Might Get Uncomfortable. This is a special edition of our podcast. But if you go search for This Might Get Uncomfortable in whatever your favorite podcast player is, you'll find it. And we have lots of discussions like this, sharing our perspective, sharing the information that we're learning, talking to guests. And, we were planning on recording an Expo West episode next Monday, so
We'll see
what happens.
Don't know what's going to happen, but
But you know what? I will say that episode was meant to be kind of a summary of our experience, and so we can discuss, our decision.
Indeed.
And then I would really love to contact some of these brands and still be able to try some of their products. And so whatever products we do try, we're happy to share with you on social media or a podcast episode about our experiences with them. So we're going to do our best to go through with our plans,
Yes.
however they turn out, and whether or not that means we're actually at the expo or just kind of celebrating it in spirit.
As Whitney said, we're taking it hour by hour, day by day, using the information we have available and ultimately trusting ourselves. And again, that's my point. With whatever natural remedies or clinical remedies, whatever you feel is best for you, do what is best for you. But again, overall, try not to come from fear. Try to just remain calm, get the information you can, experiment with different things. But ultimately, you have to trust yourself in whatever decision you're making in this process, because it's very, very easy to get sucked into fear and worry and concern. But if you can be there for other people and remain level-headed and calm and make good decisions, that ultimately, I think, is the best choice for not only us and our families, but humanity as a collective.
Mm-hmm. Thanks again for watching, for listening. We hope to see you over at the podcast. This might get uncomfortable. And we'd love to hear from you about whether or not you're going to this event or any other further information you'd want to share about what you're learning about the coronavirus or COVID, whatever you call it. I don't know.
The thing. The zombie apocalypse. Share with us your strategies on the impending zombie apocalypse. We appreciate it.
All joking aside, we care for you so much, and we hope that this helped you out.
Bye.
Bye.